On a hot summer day, Miyano came across a boy being bullied in school. He thought things like this hardly ever happened, even in standard boys' love stories. So, is this show gay? Yup, they just open with it right in the intro. Calling Hirano, he tells him about the situation, but with the beating getting worse, Miyano got the urge to step in. That's when Sasaki showed up, asking him to hold a broom while he went to handle the situation. One glance at Sasaki's handsome face, and Miyano felt nothing but admiration from that moment on. 3 months later, Sasaki met up with him on their way to school. Calling Miyano Mia-chan, Sasaki said he was cute as ever today. Miyano had told him several times to stop calling him cute. He was sensitive about his face. How did things even turn out like this? Lately, Sasaki's physical contact has been excessive. In school, he would dive onto Miyano, hugging him. Miyano told him to dial it back, or he'd have this made into slash art. Sasaki didn't even know what slash art was. So I looked it up. Google says it's like gay fanfic art, kinda like most of the Ivan Till ships. And his genuine questions made Miyano feel embarrassed. Sasaki then asked him if he liked manga and had any recommendations. For Miyano, that was the trickiest question to answer. Recently, Sasaki liked a shoujo manga his sister was reading, but he wanted to read something Miyano liked. Lending him a manga, Miyano told him to only read it in his room and not take it out of the bag anywhere. It was to be treated like a toxic substance. The next day, Sasaki would meet up with him again. Just as he was about to talk about the manga, Miyano quickly shut him up. He warned Sasaki not to discuss scenes like that in front of people because it was really embarrassing. Although that kind of manga actually caught Sasaki off guard, he thought it was actually good. Hearing that, Miyano's eyes lit up with a warm feeling. At first, Sasaki thought it was a detective story, but after seeing the guys together and all the hard stuff the protagonist had to go through, he really liked it. Getting all excited, Miyano started explaining that a physically receptive character was called an uke. The uke was pretty given to tears and cute, but the mentally manly one was him. Feeling uneasy, Sasaki then mentioned that he really liked the part at the end. Likewise, Miyano felt the same, especially the way it expressed the character's happiness. At first, he felt nervous because it was a BL manga. Seeing that Sasaki liked it made him really happy. Miyano continued rambling, and Sasaki couldn't stop thinking about how cute he was. Then, he asked Miyano to lend him more manga. Following that, the frequency of Sasaki's visits became excessive. He'd come to Miyano's class, giving him cookies as thanks for the manga. When Sasaki left, Tashiro and Kurosawa wondered when Miyano and Sasaki became so close. Tashiro mentioned that Sasaki was a delinquent, which made him worried, but Miyano assured him that Sasaki was a good person. Later, Hirano met with Miyano, asking if things were alright with Sasaki, who'd been visiting him a lot. He was the one who told Sasaki which class Miyano was in. He'd feel bad if Sasaki were being a bother. After all, Miyano was his junior. Just then, Sasaki came visiting again. Hirano immediately stood to get rid of him. After tussling, Sasaki explained he came to return the manga he borrowed yesterday. Flustered, Miyano immediately pushed him away from the class before anyone else would see it. As a fudanshi, or rotten boy, this is a male fan of BL as opposed to most of you girls watching this. You're a fujoshi, or rotten girl. He had lived in the shadows. Plus, Sasaki was an upperclassman who was drawing too much attention. Either way, he liked this particular manga, stating that he might be into comedies. Hearing that, Miyano took notes. He was recording Sasaki's tastes as a reference for next time. And as always, Sasaki thought he was so cute. After school, he asked Miyano if he hated sweet stuff. It turned out that sweet stuff made Miyano's stomach upset. A slice of shortcake was tough for him to handle. And as for candy, wasabi-flavored ones were fine for him. Somehow, Miyano was able to handle soda relatively well. It didn't seem sweet so much as bubbly, so it worked out. Staring at him, Sasaki recalled the first day he saw Miyano. At first glance, he was already thinking about how cute he was. And when he saw Miyano was about to stop a fight, he rushed in to help. Seeing Miyano's face had his heart racing. After the fight, he'd be disappointed to see Hirano and not Miyano. Sasaki couldn't even remember the faces of the bullies. Only Miyano was stuck in his mind. Hirano would then get a message from Miyano, who thanked Sasaki for his help. The next day, Fate would have them meet on the train to school. Usually, Sasaki took the third train after this one, which always made him late. Miyano then thanked him for the cookies, saying they were delicious. Sasaki wasn't so great at cooking, but baking was a different case. He usually baked treats outside of class. Getting to their stop, Miyano felt like the train didn't take as long today. It was mostly because he and Sasaki were chatting. Noticing the cloudy weather, Sasaki had a flashback. One day in school, when there was homework due, Hirano was making sure he was up to date with all his schoolwork. Miyano would then come to class, letting Hirano know that the chairman of the disciplinary committee had left a message for him during their meeting. Seeing Miyano, Sasaki walked up to his cute face, confirming that he was actually a guy. He'd even grab Miyano's shoulders just to double check. At that moment, Hirano smacked him for trying to mess with his junior. Sasaki would go back to his seat, but couldn't stop staring at Miyano. Even though Miyano was a guy, he was too cute. Anxious, Sasaki wondered how he got into this predicament. When school was over, the rain started pouring down. Miyano met Sasaki at the door, and since Sasaki had no umbrella, he offered to share his. It made things easier since they'd both be taking the train. On another day, Sasaki was late to school again. As Miyano noticed his extra sweet peach drink, Sasaki offered him a sip, but it was too sweet for him. Later, Miyano would come to Sasaki's class, giving him another manga. Recalling his friends gave him some candy, he offered them to Sasaki and Hirano. By the time they realized there was alcohol in it, it was too late. Sasaki looked like he was about to puke. After he went to wash up, Miyano brought a sweet drink for him. Holding the cold drink, Sasaki was reminded of the time he got beaten up by bullies. They were the same ones he stopped the first time he met Miyano. His stomach hurt so much, he could barely stand. Everything felt too much for him to handle at the time. Wallowing in despair, his world was brightened as Miyano came to check on him. Sasaki found himself blushing hard, and he couldn't figure out why. As Miyano handed him a bandage, he noticed how small his hands were. Miyano was so kind and earnest. Seeing how concerned Miyano was, Sasaki burst into laughter. He called him cute and asked if he wanted to go out. But he was only kidding. Ever since that moment, Sasaki liked Miyano for liking the video and subscribing to my channel. Because here on my Shoujo Weekly 2, I'm covering all the gay stuff. That's right. Still not gay though. But I'm building a collection to be the #1 boy love storyteller on YouTube. So come on, hit that subscribe and I'll be your guy. Not a gay one though. On another day, after school, Sasaki asked Miyano if he wanted to head home together. However, Miyano had plans to visit the bookstore. Still, Sasaki followed him. Seeing that Miyano wanted to go buy BL, he figured it'd be easier if they went together. Miyano explained that standing in front of the BL shelf with another guy meant they'd end up as fodder for everyone else's conversations. So, they just getting shipped by the other customers? Sasaki decided he'd stand on a different shelf. Getting to the bookstore, Miyano looked very shy, unlike Sasaki, who was acting natural. While he picked out a new manga, Sasaki waved to him from a different section. Back at school, Sasaki would come to his class, asking for a new volume of another manga. Something seemed to be disturbing Miyano. He wondered how Sasaki was able to read BL without being a fudanshi. Sasaki then blurted, "If there is someone I like, I want them to know." Everyone in class definitely heard that. Feeling embarrassed, Miyano pushed him out, telling him to get back to his class. Little did Sasaki know, Miyano was flush. Getting back to his seat, Kurosawa noticed Miyano's face was red. Plus, he was very certain Sasaki just blurted out who he liked. Miyano claimed it was all a joke, but Kurosawa wasn't buying it. Moments later, while Miyano had headphones plugged in, Sasaki showed up, snagging one earphone. He heard a bit of what Miyano was listening to, and it turned out to be a spicy BL audiobook. You just listened to the spicy BL in the hallway? That's crazy. Flustered, Miyano tried to explain that it wasn't what it looked like. But who is he fooling? Right now, he wished Sasaki would have amnesia and forget all he had just heard. Shortly after, Kurosawa met with them, and Sasaki left. He wondered what the two of them were doing before he showed up. But Miyano didn't have an answer for that. While he was filling out his journal, Sasaki came, asking to play the chicken game with him. It was a game where two people ate from opposite ends of a treat, and their faces got closer and closer until someone bailed. Sasaki wanted to play with him, and who knows, maybe he'd get lucky. Since Miyano didn't want to play, he still offered him the treat, letting him know it was sweet. As Sasaki stuck it out, Miyano bit it from his hand. At that moment, it was as though the world slowed around them. Sasaki was speechless, and Miyano was flush. Sasaki would then leave him with the rest of the treats before leaving. By the time he left, Miyano realized the treat was sweet. In the bathroom, Sasaki couldn't stop thinking about that moment. He wondered if Miyano had let his guard down. Usually, he would have gotten angry. With so many thoughts running through his mind, Sasaki was left confused. Blushing, he thought Miyano was so adorable. His feelings were getting more intense. Next time they'd hug, he might squeeze extra hard. Fearing it'd make Miyano mad, he decided it was best to avoid touching him. Back in class, Kurosawa approached Miyano, ready to go. Seeing the sweets he got from Sasaki, he asked Miyano if he liked them. The other day Kurosawa gave him chocolates, he gave them away. Miyano claimed those were too sweet, but his friend sensed a difference in treatment. Miyano told him it wasn't like that, but even he slowly started to doubt those words. The following day, Tashiro asked Miyano if he was going out with Sasaki. After all, they were in an all-boys school, and Sasaki was always calling Miyano cute. But Miyano claimed they just had a regular senior-junior relationship. Yeah. Me and my guy friends just feed each other Pocky and call each other cute. Bro, this gay as hell. Kurosawa also said Sasaki was a good person. Apparently, the summer he got beat up, Sasaki was the one who saved him. After his friends left, Miyano looked concerned, wondering if Sasaki was being teased in his class. If the BL manga he was lending Sasaki were causing him trouble, Miyano wondered what he'd do. Out of nowhere, Sasaki showed up, startling him. Curious, he asked Miyano if he got hit on a lot. Miyano told him to abandon the thought that they were potential partners behind every corner. Sasaki was curious about Hirano. However, Miyano replied that Hirano was an uke who was with his roommate. Hey, I just looked it up. I didn't know what it meant until now, but apparently uke means receive or to receive. Bruh. So Miyano is calling Hirano a bottom, basically. Dang. Despite being an all-boys school, there was a co-ed school nearby, so it was more common for students to find a girlfriend off campus. Sasaki thought Miyano's fudanshi nature was the reason he picked a boys' school. But Miyano had only found BL after he chose this school. Hearing it was unintentional, Sasaki got more curious as to how Miyano got into BL. With his face all red, Miyano mentioned there was a time he went to get a reference book for exams and manga for study breaks. That was when he spotted a manga with a familiar character drawn really well on the cover. Anthology was written on it. Given that official collaborations happened between authors sometimes, Miyano had thought that was the case. While he was explaining, he covered his face with the book. Sasaki reached to take the cover off, but would hold himself back. Months later, Sasaki came to meet Hirano. Upon seeing Miyano, his face lit up, but before that, he'd give Hirano a document from their teacher. Lately, Hirano has been on gopher duty a lot. He'd advised Miyano to keep his head up, because in second year, he'd also be told to squeeze in school visits. While Hirano locked the doors, Miyano and Sasaki left. He noticed the two of them had gotten pretty close, and decided to take it as a good thing. Walking together, Sasaki noticed a shop selling Valentine gifts. So, he dragged Miyano inside. He thought they'd be great material in a BL manga. Hearing that, Miyano was flush. Sasaki proposed they buy gifts and exchange them. However, Miyano would decline. Later on, Sasaki asked him how many people gave him chocolates. Surprisingly, Miyano received 36. One of his classmates loved events, and on his suggestion, everyone brought chocolates. Hearing that, Sasaki was visibly upset, ignoring everything else Miyano was saying. Getting home, he stormed straight into his room, ignoring everyone. The Valentine gift he had bought earlier lay on his bed. Picking it up, he stared at it, blaming himself for not thinking about events. Out of the 36 people who gifted Miyano, he wondered who was the first person to make a move. On another day, Miyano met up with Sasaki in school, and surprisingly, Saki was here early. Exams were coming up, and his grades weren't so good. He had to show up early so Hirano could help him study. But since Hirano would be a bit late, Sasaki invited Miyano to join him for some cocoa. He could use the chance to share his thoughts about the last manga he borrowed. Sitting together outside, Sasaki winced in pain after a sip of hot cocoa. Then, Miyano asked if he was cat-tongued. He had heard on TV that cat-tongued people were clumsy with their tongues. That made him think they were probably clumsy kissers. He'd been thinking that in BL, they'd be taught how to kiss. The cat-tongued moe made him curious. Sasaki was yet to understand the thought process of a fudanshi. He asked Miyano if he wanted to find out if he was truly clumsy. Sasaki teased him by sticking his tongue out. Miyano was flustered, letting him know that he wasn't looking for a BL experience. Giving Sasaki the next manga, he told him this one was part of a series, and there were more than 10. He wanted him to read the first few for now since tastes differed. At this point, Sasaki wondered how many mangas Miyano had read. He borrowed at least 30 already. Sasaki flashed back to him screaming that he wasn't looking for a BL experience. However, he was dying to touch Miyano. In class, Miyano felt a little bad. He didn't mean to yell like that, but looking at it from an outside perspective, Sasaki's actions were a clear invitation. Despair was written all over his face. Whether Sasaki was joking or not, he couldn't tell, but for a joke, it seemed a bit too serious. After classes, he recalled forgetting to give Sasaki one of the volumes. He could probably still catch Sasaki in class. He'd wait for Miyano by the entrance. On his way, Miyano wondered if Sasaki would even have time to read the manga, especially with exams coming up, but he really wanted him to. The series got exceptionally good with Volume 2. Getting to the front door of the class, Miyano would overhear one of Sasaki's classmates asking if he was really into that BL stuff. Panicking, Miyano wondered what to do. Hearing Sasaki say that he didn't see a problem with it made him feel warm inside. His heart raced as he ran out of there and met with Kurosawa. He decided to give the manga to Sasaki next week. Blushing hard, he mentioned how Sasaki looked so cool back there. Ever since the first time they met, he always thought Sasaki was cool. Days later, Miyano still hadn't given him the new series. He feared one of Sasaki's classmates might make comments again. While he was curled up and cold, Sasaki approached him, giving off a sweet, warm energy. After returning the manga, he noticed Miyano was zoned out. As he reached for his face, Miyano pulled back, unable to say anything. They both seemed flustered. Sasaki suggested they leave together after school and head to the bookstore. With Miyano having nothing better to do, he agreed to go. Sasaki then asked about the rest of the manga, and that startled Miyano. Still, he'd hand it over. Then Sasaki left. Miyano would then slump his head back on the table. At least he no longer felt cold. Miyano was shocked to see Kurosawa with a bag of presents. They were White Day gifts for Kurosawa's girlfriend. Kurosawa wondered if Miyano had brought anything, but he hadn't, at least not for the class anyway. 2 days earlier, Miyano prepared some chocolates because Sasaki's gifts had been weighing on him. He wondered if he didn't need to give something in return. It was supposed to be an exchange, but his class wasn't doing return gifts. It still bothered him though, and he didn't want to go to BL to look for answers. After school, he headed over to Sasaki's class. With the snack party going on, the two of them decided to go somewhere quiet. By the staircase, Miyano would then give Sasaki his White Day gift. Flustered, he explained that it was to show gratitude for the chocolates he received earlier. For a moment, words escaped Sasaki. Then, he accepted the gift, thanking Miyano. He quickly left to get something and asked Miyano to wait for a bit. Getting to his class, Sasaki was blushing hard. His heart wouldn't stop pounding so much. Shortly after, he returned with a bunch of snacks for Miyano. 4 days later, after the closing ceremony, Sasaki waved over to Miyano in the hall. That was when it clicked for Miyano. Sasaki would graduate before him, and there was only 1 year left. Meeting with Hirano afterwards, Miyano was shocked to see his black hair. Apparently, it was expected for students to dye their hair black for closing ceremony in pictures. It looked nicer, more proper. Miyano had to get a lot of pictures of him. Due to Hirano dyeing his hair black a couple times, it was really damaged. Sasaki then approached them, and unlike Hirano, his hair wasn't so damaged. Last time his hair was black was when he was a freshman. Shortly after that, Jiro met up with them as well. Hearing Miyano's name, he instantly recognized him as the Fudanchi. So much for Miyano maintaining his secret. Hearing Jiro complain about how guys like BL, Miyano figured he was the one he had overheard that day in Sasaki's class. Jiro was just pissed because his girl was into BL as well. The BL manga she was hiding had a delinquent getting topped by a big buff dude. Oh man, is that the kind of story you guys want to see? Jiro really liked her, but he had a fear that she wanted him to get with a dude this whole time. Bro was really going through it. Hirano and the others were having a party to cheer him up. Kurosawa wouldn't be able to come because he had plans with his own girlfriend, and Miyano had plans to visit the bookstore, with of course, Sasaki deciding to go with him. Jiro called out to him for bailing on the party, but Sasaki felt there'd be plenty of people there, even without him. Besides, he and Miyano had manga to catch up on. At the bookstore, Miyano noticed Sasaki didn't really give off that uke or seme vibe, and he didn't get why. After shopping, on their way out, Sasaki had the urge to place his hands on Miyano's shoulders, but he held back. On the train, Miyano fell asleep, leaning on Sasaki. At that moment, Sasaki whispered something, and Miyano immediately got up. At the next stop, Sasaki got off, bidding him farewell until the next term. As Miyano rode alone, he wondered if Sasaki only saw him as a kohai. Would he have actually whispered, "I like you"? In that quiet tone, recalling his soft voice, Miyano was flushed and confused about what to do. On another day, Sasaki and Jiro were making fun of Hirano for dyeing his hair black. But there was a hair check today, which Hirano tried to explain to his stubborn friends. Plus, their hair color would be a problem during entrance exams. Thinking about the exams, Sasaki realized there was only 1 year left before he'd graduate. He had known Miyano for more than 6 months, but he didn't know how much longer he'd be able to hold back his feelings. A month later, with the start of the new term, Miyano and his friends were now second years. He and Kurosawa were in Class B. Looking around, Miyano noticed Sasaki hadn't come back yet. Then, Kurosawa mentioned spotting him over the break. Apparently, Sasaki worked at a bakery. Thinking about it now, there were aspects of Sasaki still unknown to Miyano. They basically only ever talked about manga. Sasaki was a good listener, and probably quite popular. Because of that, Miyano figured lots of people confessed their feelings to him. Recalling that time Sasaki whispered to him on the train, he was flush. They hadn't seen each other since that day. If they were to, Miyano wouldn't know how to act. On one rainy day, they'd surprisingly meet on the train. It was quite early for Sasaki, but at least he got to see Miyano. This was the first time they had seen each other this term. When Sasaki tried to make small talk, Miyano didn't have much to say. At the next stop, when one of the passengers got off, a seat was free. Miyano quickly pulled Sasaki into the seat. Since he had seniority, Sasaki would tease him, asking if he wanted to sit on his lap. Then, he'd offer to hold Miyano's bag. It was a lot heavier than he expected. He curiously searched the bag to see what was inside, and found a spin-off novel of a manga Miyano had borrowed from him. Miyano got embarrassed and took it away. When they got off, Miyano was talking about a certain manga, but Sasaki was too distracted by the flower on his head. He thought it was so cute. However, he didn't know whether to remove it or leave it. Seeing some guys casually talk ahead of them, Sasaki found the courage to remove the petal and tell Miyano, but instead of tossing it away, he'd hold on to it. Later in school, Sasaki found Miyano's class. He came to return the manga he borrowed before the break. Since Miyano had some free time, they went out together. Sasaki asked who the uke in the manga was, because he didn't recall seeing those types of scenes. Miyano asked him to guess, and recalling that Miyano liked black-haired ukes, Sasaki figured it was the black-haired one. Miyano felt a bit embarrassed. However, there wasn't a right answer since the author never revealed who the uke was. Miyano also thought it was the black-haired character, but he insisted that he only made that decision because he liked handsome ukes. While they were chatting, someone accidentally bumped into Miyano, causing him to fall towards Sasaki, but he put his hands on the wall immediately, catching himself. Being so close to Miyano, Sasaki was shocked. He'd go ahead to check on Miyano's wrist to make sure he wasn't hurting. Looking up, Sasaki's dashing looks left Miyano stunned. Recalling when Sasaki confessed to liking him on the train, he was flush. When they parted ways, Miyano wondered why that memory had come to him. Getting back home, Miyano felt he had interacted with Sasaki the same as before. Thinking about his demeanor, he realized Sasaki really did like him. But Miyano liked girls, not guys. Buddy, I don't know a single straight guy who's enjoying BL manga as a hobby. That's like saying, yeah guys, I watched Brokeback Mountain for the plot. And don't even look at me. I'm doing it for money, baby. Plus, these BLs have some funny moments like in Fate Gay Night, where Aresh had to fill Sei with his magic juice or he'd die. Back in middle school, the girl he liked told him to wear girl clothes because he'd look good in them. Miyano didn't appreciate that one bit, and the thought of it left him all gloomy. He never paid much mind, but with Sasaki's tone and the look in his eyes, it was like it became real all at once. Miyano was even more flustered than ever. He tried to read his usual BL manga, but it only put more thoughts into his head. He tried to calm down, reminding himself that Sasaki was a guy. Then again, he realized with his own small frame, he'd be the uke. Refusing to accept that, he felt there was quite a demand in the world for short semes. In some cases, a short top was the standard. I don't know who he thinks he's fooling. The next second, he was already imagining himself on top of Sasaki. Miyano immediately tried to shake off the thought of it, but there's only so much he could do. Several hours earlier, Sasaki left Hirano and Jiro, deciding to go home earlier. At the train station, Sasaki couldn't stop thinking about how close he and Miyano were back then. Being that close was too much for him. The following day, Miyano was arranging some worksheets. One of the papers flew out the window, so he'd go outside to retrieve it. On his way, he'd bump into Jiro, whose girlfriend just hung up on him. Seeing that he was easy to talk to, Miyano asked about his girlfriend, but Jiro's mood immediately changed. Sensing he stepped on a landmine, Miyano decided to back off. However, Jiro explained that he and his girlfriend had been fighting for 2 months. He went to her house the other day to make up with her, but on getting there, he heard her over the phone screaming, "Nothing beats a delinquent uke!" Scared for his life, he ended up going home without seeing her. He definitely didn't want to be pulled into her fantasies. Since Miyano was a fudanshi, Jiro asked him if he looked like an uke. Not like he was trying to be one, but if his girl saw him as an uke, then he wanted to play himself up as her boyfriend. If he didn't know what made him seem like an uke, it'd change nothing. To avoid triggering his girl's moe points, he read every manga she did, but he found one about a slime and a delinquent. Slime? Like Rimuru? It only made Jiro more confused. He didn't know what his girl wanted anymore. Even Miyano was weirded out by her tastes. He couldn't comment on the manga, but said that if Jiro's girlfriend was going out with him, then it obviously meant she liked him. Liking BL was a different thing. Maybe he happened to be close to her favorite genre, and she liked him as her boyfriend. Though some people didn't separate the two, but Miyano wouldn't speak on that. Jiro assumed Miyano had never treated Sasaki as BL material because they were dating. Miyano immediately made it clear that they weren't in a relationship. As for whether he liked boys, he denied it, but not the same way. After that, Jiro thanked him for his words of encouragement, and he offered to introduce his girlfriend to him if they made up. In the hallway, Sasaki would hear Miyano's voice, and getting closer, he saw a hand reaching for him. Without thinking twice, he'd rush to the window, pulling Miyano towards him. There was a fierce look in his eyes, and Jiro was frightened as Sasaki's eyes darted towards him. Seeing that it was his classmate, Sasaki calmed down. Miyano, on the other hand, was about to have his heart leap out of his chest. Jiro then explained he was getting advice from Miyano. After all, he didn't quite understand his Fujoshi girlfriend. With everything cleared, Miyano took his leave, and Sasaki carried on as well. On his way back to class, Jiro's words still echoed in Miyano's mind. Even though he looked at it in manga, he was certain he didn't like boys. In middle school, he had a crush on a girl. Nevertheless, anytime he thought about Sasaki, he got a tight feeling in his chest. He started wondering if he actually liked boys. With Sasaki in his mind, he began feeling uneasy. Over in Sasaki's class, he put his head on his table, unable to stop thinking about how he felt when trying to save Miyano. He couldn't fight the feeling he had. Staring out the window, he wondered what he'd do now. During a sports event, Miyano would win a race for his class. Kurosawa congratulated him. Surprisingly, Miyano was quite fast, despite being an indoor person. Kurosawa then left him to get a drink. While washing up his face, Miyano recalled a classmate suggesting he should grow out his bangs. That way, he'd look older and less feminine. And in the end, he did grow them out, but now they were just in the way. He'd get approached by Sasaki, and as always, Sasaki was as dashing as ever. Since Miyano was done with his event, he invited him to take a break together. Miyano told him he was in the 1500-meter race, and he was a good long-distance runner. Hearing that, Sasaki was impressed. Despite feeling shy, Miyano thanked him. As for Sasaki, he was in the basket toss event. It was basically compulsory for tall people. He mentioned that Hirano would have played, but as a freshman, he caused trouble and was banned from basket toss. Apparently, he yanked his classmates' PE clothes off, filled them with balls, and tossed them in. When the other classes started copying him, things got crazy. It wasn't basket toss anymore. As the conversation went on, Miyano was glad to see that he and Sasaki were talking normally. He liked talking to him. When the topic switched to manga, he never imagined they'd be talking about his hobby. But whether that was love, he wasn't sure. Sasaki talked about how a part of the manga got him excited when he was reading alone. He'd ask if that was what being a moe was. Miyano was overjoyed, seeing that Sasaki finally understood. He also felt like he misheard Sasaki on the train back then. It wasn't like Sasaki had said anything directly since then. Miyano felt like his spirits had been lifted for a bit. But as they were chatting, Sasaki kept thinking about how cute he was. He enjoyed talking to Miyano and enjoyed being with him. If only this could go on forever. He didn't want it to end after he graduated. Rather than wait any longer, Sasaki turned to him, saying, "I love you, Miyano." What he said in the summer, he wasn't taking that back. Miyano froze in that moment, flustered. He didn't know what to say. Seeing as he wavered, Sasaki wondered if this meant there was a chance. So he told Miyano he could wait. He'd be happier if Miyano gave it some thought. And Miyano promised to think about it. As he left, Sasaki found himself blushing. He was really nervous. Miyano would then come back, asking what Sasaki liked about him. Shocked by the question, Sasaki answered his face. Definitely the wrong choice of words. Miyano decided to take his leave then. Sasaki rushed after him, realizing he messed up, but Miyano already met up with Kurosawa, so they'd leave it till next time. It wasn't like Sasaki lied, he was really into Miyano's face. But it wasn't just that. His eyes, the excited way Miyano talked to him, the way he looked right at him. Miyano remembered the things he said. On White Day, he even gave Sasaki a gift. Sasaki liked all of it. He was just caught off guard by that question, and realized now that expressing his feelings were hard. While he was lost in thought, Hirano called his attention, telling him their class relay was up next. Noticing Sasaki looked sad, he asked what was wrong. Sasaki then mentioned the manga he borrowed from Miyano, which was about time slips. Hirano let him know he wasn't interested in anything related to BL. Before heading to the race, Sasaki thought to himself, I wanna be cool. At first, Miyano wasn't bothered about the way people teased that he looked more like a girl than an actual girl. But as it happened over and over again, he grew more insecure and sick of it. Brother got traumatized by being in the femboy category. On the train, he'd wake up from that bad dream, wondering if this was because of his cold. Remembering that Sasaki liked his face, he went flush, and wondered what Sasaki meant when he called him cute. Was it because of his feminine face? Miyano didn't want to be a girl. A manlier face would have been more preferable. If only he were a few inches taller, he would have more confidence. So many emotions swirled in his chest, making him wonder how he felt about Sasaki. During the disciplinary committee meeting, Hirano mentioned they'd be conducting morning dress code checks before the exam period. Miyano then asked what would happen if a committee member were violating the dress code, like a certain blonde individual. Realizing it was him, Hirano said that a written apology can get him exempt for dyed hair. Plus, he felt like it'd be a pain to dye it back for every test. The reason he dyed it black during the closing ceremony was that he was also going to see some relatives over the break. Miyano asked why he even dyed his hair blonde. Hirano answered, because it looked cool. Dyeing and re-dyeing cost a lot of money, so it was easier for him to stick with the blonde. Then, he spoke about when Sasaki dyed his hair in his first year. At one point, the color was falling out, making him look like a calico cat. Hours later, Sasaki came to the office. Hirano quickly shushed him because Miyano was asleep. Since the teacher was asking for Hirano, he asked Sasaki to stay with Miyano until he came back. As time slowly passed, Sasaki stared at Miyano, and then a thought came to him. If it was through the mask, would it be okay? He knew it wasn't a good idea, but the temptation kept growing. It was as if time slowed down. He put his hand on Miyano's mask, just to feel him breathing. He was hopeless. That moment would be interrupted by Hirano sliding the door open. Miyano jolted up, surprised to see Sasaki behind him. Hirano then told him to go home. There was no need for him to push it. So, Miyano took his leave. After he left, Hirano asked Sasaki if he did something to Miyano. He noticed Miyano had been acting weird. Sasaki revealed that he confessed his feelings. Hirano took a bit to process what he just heard. He asked Sasaki if he had Miyano's number, and surprisingly, he didn't. Even after all that manga borrowing, they hadn't exchanged contacts. Tossing him a phone with Miyano's number, Hirano told Sasaki to quit wasting time and just get it over with. Miyano would get a call, and he'd be shocked to hear Sasaki over the phone. Sasaki wanted nothing more than to keep hearing his voice. Then, he explained that he borrowed Hirano's phone. He told Miyano that he liked him a whole lot, and not just for his face. Miyano's face turned red with embarrassment. However, Sasaki would end the call there. Miyano didn't see this BL sucker punch coming. Even his ears were red. He was all warm inside. Meanwhile, Tashiro and Kurosawa were clueless as to why he was so quiet. Sasaki liked him for more than his face, and that made him feel more relieved. But he questioned why he felt this way. Back in the office, Hirano asked Sasaki if his feelings were serious. Hearing that they were, he told him not to do anything careless, though the situation was creeping him out. The next day, on the train, Sasaki met Miyano on the way to school. He was glad to hear Miyano was feeling much better. He'd been waking up early these days because he wanted to see him. Miyano was flush, but that was wiped away when Sasaki added that exams were coming up, and he was undergoing Hirano's special training. Then, he mentioned there was a BL anime he saw on TV last night. It was probably the one Miyano lent to him. To think he watched it at home. Miyano hoped no one saw him. Luckily, everyone else was asleep when Sasaki went to watch TV. He didn't even know there were BL anime. Miyano then thought back to when he promised to think about a response to Sasaki's confession. As they were talking, he liked the way Sasaki always listened to him. Because of that, he wanted to consider his words. He didn't want to reject him because he was a guy. Nevertheless, Miyano had only ever liked girls. He definitely liked Sasaki as a senior, but didn't know how to think about this. Miyano wondered what it meant to like someone. In school, the teacher handed out post-graduation goal forms to be submitted by Friday. Bearing in mind that day was Sasaki's birthday, Kurosawa asked Miyano if he had anything planned. But by the looks of it, Miyano didn't. As for Kurosawa, he vowed to only give presents for his girlfriend, a true, loyal boyfriend. He didn't care about anyone else. Meanwhile, Miyano felt if he and Sasaki were just normal friends, then a simple happy birthday would suffice. But now, he wondered if it was okay to give him something while making him wait for his answer. There were things he was grateful to Sasaki for. He didn't want to just ignore it. On the other hand, Tashiro ended up spending the whole lunchtime listening to Kurosawa gush over his girlfriend. He didn't get to finish his lunch, and he even brought candy. Seeing the lollipops, Miyano recalled he had seen Sasaki eating those. It was one of the sweets he liked. Tashiro then gave Miyano one and said there were tons of non-sweet Neapolitan flavor left. So, he suggested all three of them should buy and try them out together. As for whose wallet would be sacrificed, they'd do a fundraiser. On Sasaki's birthday, he and Miyano would meet on the train again. Miyano gifted a sweet candy as a birthday present. Giving a warm smile, Sasaki thanked him. At that moment, Miyano remembered Kurosawa talking about his girlfriend's cute smile and how he fell in love at that moment. Seeing Sasaki smile right now made his heart race. For a moment, he thought Sasaki was cute and blamed Kurosawa for putting a curse on him. Suddenly, Sasaki was ready for his tests. Once the tests were over, he felt like he had actually made a deal with the devil. He was surprisingly able to answer all the questions. The following morning was quite hot. Too hot for Miyano. He'd meet up with Sasaki, who was just thinking about the time they first met. It turns out, he and Miyano were thinking about the same thing. Sasaki's confession came crawling back into his mind once more. And now the atmosphere was even hotter. Miyano would have to give him an answer soon enough. In class, he was all gloomy, still yet to figure out what to do. These days, he couldn't read his normal manga. There was a lot on his mind. And if he couldn't read his manga, Kurosawa figured this was serious. He asked what Miyano was doing during study breaks, and Miyano answered still reading manga. It wasn't his usual, but more of workplace stuff. Somehow, Kurosawa found a way to talk about how he memorized shelf labels when he bought manga for his girlfriend. She was particular about the BL she liked. A gorgeous guy, or ikimen, was absolutely required. And lately, she liked stuff with pop idols. Oh wow, is that what you guys like too? Even after the test, he kept talking about her. Tashiro had enough of his bragging, calling him Mr. Gorgeous. Kurosawa wasn't sure he qualified as gorgeous. Then again, he remembered his girlfriend said gorgeous guys were number one because they could be seme or uke. Seeing that his face helped him get the girl, he was grateful for his parents. In other words, he was basically food for his girl's BL thoughts. Tashiro believed character was more important than looks though. For example, Miyano, even with his cute face, was a guy. Tashiro then said he couldn't be a good romantic partner with just a cute face. On the way out of school, Tashiro's words came ringing in Miyano's head. He also remembered Sasaki said he liked him for more than just his face. Out of nowhere, he bumped into Sasaki, who covered his eyes for a moment. Then, he left. Miyano was confused. Sometimes he just didn't understand Sasaki, but he didn't want to use that to avoid the issue. In the hallway, the only thing on Sasaki's mind was how he touched Miyano. On the last day of tests, it started raining. Sasaki then met up with Miyano. Finding out that Miyano didn't have an umbrella, he offered to share his. Miyano also noticed that Sasaki looked very happy. Walking together, Sasaki mentioned that Hirano still had another test left because he was taking an extra class. Since seniors had a lot of electives, schedules could be totally different. Hirano and Jiro barely had any classes in common. Because of that, Jiro panicked because Hirano couldn't help him study. Luckily, his girlfriend helped him. Miyano then realized he and Sasaki didn't get many chances to talk like this. Feeling a bit flustered, he asked Sasaki if he liked guys. He answered, no. But Miyano was the only one who made him feel this way. Miyano then told him that he wasn't sure how to think about that. He wasn't seeking that kind of experience. Regardless, he liked Sasaki in the sense that he looked up to him. If he were like Sasaki, then maybe Kurosawa would have gotten a little less hurt that day. Although he liked BL, he didn't imagine himself in them, and he had only ever liked girls. Thinking about all this made BL even more confusing for him. As Miyano kept rambling, Sasaki held the urge to laugh. The way Miyano was acting was too cute for him. Miyano didn't just look up to him. There was more to it. Due to that, he asked Sasaki for time to think about it more. As for whether he could think of Sasaki in the same way, he had never looked at it as a real possibility, and he wasn't sure if he'd figure it out. After relaying his words, Sasaki looked at him with a warm expression, telling him it was alright. The fact that Miyano was going to think about it made him happy. Sasaki was glad he developed feelings. Miyano obviously cared about him. Knowing that made him feel crazy. Despite not knowing what Miyano's answer could be, he couldn't stop smiling. He was so ridiculously happy. Even though Miyano might grow taller than him one day, and his face might change, it didn't matter. Sasaki felt he'd still like him. So, Miyano was allowed to take as long as he wanted to think about it. Sasaki would continue borrowing manga, and they'd keep being senpai and kohai. Sasaki then patted his head, saying that when he was someone he liked, he might touch them. Not knowing how to react to that, Miyano was flush. Miyano's school had a cultural festival coming up, and there would be a cross-dressing competition. His class would determine their representative with a vote. Miyano had seen this as a plot in BL. Shortly after, while looking gloomy, he ran to Hirano, telling him it was all terrible. It turns out, he was picked as the representative for the cross-dressing competition. Hirano told him that if he didn't want to do it, then he should refuse with the same persistence he showed in asking about his dorm life. But Miyano claimed that was a separate issue. The chairman of their committee, Masato, started reminiscing about the competition. He mentioned that the cultural festival committee had revealed their tastes when they wrested permission to hold it from the student council. He put on a creepy expression as he remembered the look on the student council president's face. Masato then asked Miyano if he had a thing about looking like a girl. Femboy allegations never ending. Since his classmates were helping him, Miyano didn't mind the competition just this one time. But when Masato asked if he found his fish in the sea, he got all flustered. Back in class, Miyano didn't even get why a boys' school would do something as BL-ish as a cross-dressing competition. He'd be shocked once they announced him as the winner of the vote. He immediately yelled, "Absolutely not! I want a tall, buff guy to do it." Fumigake told him he was their best shot at winning. Plus, Class A was already saying that Class B was full of butterfaces, and they were screwed. For Fumi, this mockery was personal. He even proposed having Kurosawa cross-dress as a substitute. Kurosawa didn't mind either. Fumi desperately begged, telling Miyano he wouldn't need to wear a super girly outfit. With his friends helping, Miyano didn't mind, thanks to his friends' support. Thinking of when Sasaki told him he might grow taller and his face might change as well, Miyano found himself feeling all warm inside. Even though they agreed not to make him wear a girly outfit, his classmates were already picking out the most girly dresses, almost as if that one condition didn't exist anymore. Masato then offered to bring Miyano some outfits. Miyano wondered if he was into this kind of thing. However, they didn't belong to Masato. His older sister was an otaku, and she had all sorts of cosplay. Before leaving, Masato picked up some cards, suggesting they play a game, and the loser would have to lock up. As Sasaki showed up in the middle of their game, Masato handed him his cards, asking him to take over. While he only had 3 cards, the others had their hands full. Sasaki had heard that the first person to have the joker was the most likely to lose. Hearing that, Miyano was startled, and he ended up being the loser. He was left to lock up, while Hirano took his leave. Sasaki would stay with Miyano, helping him arrange the place before leaving. He'd also follow him to the staff room to return the key. Miyano asked him if he wanted to see a teacher. However, Sasaki told him he only wanted to see the person he liked. Smooth. That caught Miyano off guard, and his face turned red. At night, while reading one of his manga, Miyano wondered if the relationship between him and Sasaki was like BL. He'd shoved the thought away, refusing to believe it. The next day after school, they'd walk home together. Sasaki mentioned he finished reading the latest manga he borrowed. It was the same author as the very first manga Miyano had lent him. They both really liked this author's work, so it was good that Sasaki tried to have his sister read it. Miyano seemed concerned. He explained that everyone had their own preferences, and if he wasn't careful, he might end up giving someone an unexpected shock. Sasaki understood that, since he was quite surprised the first time he read that kind of manga. But thanks to that, he found some good ones, and now he also got to talk to Miyano. Likewise, Miyano was happy to have these conversations with him. While Sasaki went to get a drink, Nao would run into Miyano. She was his middle school classmate. Nao's paints would start falling out of her bag, and he'd help her pick them up. She was still into painting and had stopped to get supplies for the art club. Thinking about it, Miyano remembered she used to walk around with a big canvas then. Out of nowhere, she asked him to model for her. Then, some of her friends came by, asking if he was her boyfriend, but she let her know he was just an old classmate. She told Miyano that right now, her mission was to recruit him as her model. He swiftly declined. She felt bummed out, saying this was twice in a row. Back in middle school, she wanted him to model in girls' clothes, but he also declined then. On the other hand, Miyano had thought for sure that she wanted to tease him by taking pictures of him in girly clothes. In middle school, his features were so young and androgynous, it was a form now couldn't help but want to paint. Seeing that his frame was more masculine now, she started considering girl clothing options and whether to hide masculine parts like jaw and arms. Reflecting on those moments, Miyano didn't feel awkward. Considering how much it bothered him then, he wondered if it was because Sasaki said he'd still like him. Now then asked him to put out his left hand, just as their palms were about to touch. That's when Sasaki showed up, snatching Miyano's hand away. He then forcefully dragged Miyano away. Meanwhile, Now only felt more eager to paint him after seeing his expression. But they had no idea she really wanted to paint his expression right now. After walking some distance, Sasaki let go and apologized for getting in the way. He was obviously jealous. Given that Now was Miyano's middle school crush, that didn't help either. But Miyano realized that he didn't like her anymore. Sasaki was more than relieved to hear that. He hoped he hadn't injured Miyano on the way, but Miyano reminded him that he was a guy, so this kind of thing wouldn't hurt. However, it wasn't about gender. Sasaki didn't want to be rough with someone he liked. Miyano was flush, and Sasaki marveled at his cute expression. Just as Sasaki was about to get closer, some people ran by, shouting that they missed the bus. That made the whole moment kind of awkward. Before leaving, Sasaki let Miyano know he wasn't trying to rush him just now. On their way, Miyano recalled Now saying his hands looked masculine. Comparing his to Sasaki's, his senior's hands were way bigger. While taking out the trash, Sasaki couldn't stop thinking about Now, whom Miyano had liked. He couldn't remember her face, but knew she was smaller than him. Earlier on, Miyano told him how he and Now usually sat next to each other and were in the same group. She was easy to talk to. In middle school, girls in particular would tell him his face was feminine. At first, he didn't think they meant anything by it, but at one point, he got sick of hearing it. After Now said the same thing to him, he started talking to her less and less. Regardless, even if Miyano didn't like her anymore, if there was still a chance Now liked him, Sasaki hated it. On his way back home, he'd surprisingly bump into Kurosawa. The hospital his girlfriend was staying in was near here, so he wanted to grab the notebook he left behind before heading to school. Kurosawa then asked if Sasaki was working an early morning shift. The bakery Kurosawa had seen him working in was actually family-owned. Sasaki only helped when he managed to get up early. Kurosawa then humbly thanked Sasaki for helping him get out of that fight that day. Apparently, he had actually instigated it by not minding his business. The guys were bad-mouthing each other's girlfriends, and he had just fought with his. Feeling guilty, he ended up taking his frustration by saying something he shouldn't have. Kurosawa apologized and promised to never get into a fight again, mostly because it made his girlfriend mad. At this point, his whole motivation in his life was his girl. Later, on the train, Sasaki and Miyano met each other. Miyano noticed he listened to music quite often. Sasaki then invited him to listen together. One of the songs that played was familiar to Miyano. It was a theme song from a romance drama that aired recently. Seeing that he liked it, Sasaki happily offered to lend him the CD. Miyano seemed surprised that people borrowed and lent CDs. He had never really done it before. On the other hand, Sasaki had done it a lot. They'd bond over the different things they liked until they got to school. At school, Miyano told Sasaki there were new volumes that came out over summer break. Apparently, Sasaki had already bought the next volume of the manga he had over the summer. Miyano couldn't believe his ears. Sasaki was stunned as Miyano thanked him with a cute smile. He suddenly had the urge to hold him, but he quickly held back and went to class. In class, Sasaki was flush, thinking about how much he wanted to hug Miyano. On another day, while Hirano and Miyano were leaving the disciplinary committee office, they heard a commotion. Turning the corner, they saw Jiro sulking over the phone. He was having a fight with his girlfriend again. As soon as he saw Miyano, he was assigned as a Fujoshi interpreter. Answering the phone, Jiro's girlfriend asked Miyano if he liked a delinquent bottom, the type who was pushed down when he was alone with the aggressive top. Is this what BL viewers like to discuss? Please let me know for research. After her long rambling, Miyano admitted he did like those types. Sasaki would join, listening to the call as Jiro's girlfriend continued talking. Jiro then came over, and as he put the phone on loudspeaker, he heard her say, Jiro's a big idiot! And their argument continued. Because they were so close, they fought at least once every 2 weeks. When you're in a young and unstable relationship, you never forget these moments. Fed up with their argument, she decided to come see Jiro now. Since she was at the nearby co-ed school, it wouldn't be a problem for her. And surprisingly, Jiro had plans to marry her. I think he needs to rethink that. This is gonna be the same for their entire relationship. And he reasoned he never made a move on a woman he had no intention of marrying. Maybe that was what she liked about him so much. Shortly after, he met up with this girl, and after she hit him, they happily left. With Miyano and Sasaki leaving together, they headed to the bookstore. Sasaki would tease him, asking if they looked like they were dating when walking together like this. Feeling shy, Miyano felt they looked more like a regular senpai and kohai. Since he was figuring things out, Miyano was very self-conscious. Preparing for the school festival, Masato brought an outfit for Miyano's cross-dressing competition. He still had a variety of options with him. Miyano mentioned his class was doing an escape room puzzle for the competition. As he got called, Masato and Kurosawa were left together, and it was quite awkward. Tashiro would come with more cardboard. Upon seeing a guy in a wig, he was stunned by his beauty. He rushed, asking for the person's name. Only then did he find out it was actually Kurosawa. So he's the type that would get tricked by a trap. That's never happened to me once, guys. Miyano then returned, and after hearing what happened, he asked him to stop giving him materials that put them in a BL position. Masato then informed him that they would do his fitting tomorrow after school. The next day, Miyano was tired from staying up all night reading. As he thought back to the ending of the book he read, Sasaki popped up in his head for a moment. Just then, Sasaki came out of the corner, and the first thing he noticed was Miyano's cute bangs. He also noticed the bags under his eyes. So Miyano told him that he was up all night reading a novel. Before he knew it, morning had come. Sasaki complimented how cute he looked, with his forehead showing like that. Suddenly, he asked for permission to kiss it. Miyano was startled. Safe to say that definitely woke him up. Sasaki would then ask him to put his bangs down. Things felt off with Miyano's hair being different from normal. As he put it down, Sasaki softly touched his hair. At that moment, he noticed Sasaki's hands were cold, and it reminded him of different times Sasaki had touched him. All these times, his fingertips were cold. Following that, Masato came over to do the fitting test for Miyano. When they were done, Miyano didn't look half bad. The kimono-style outfit worked nicely. After some checking, Masato figured out he had to adjust the length and add boots. He also thought about adding chest padding and frills. But first, he'd take a picture of Miyano to show his sister. Miyano was given a fan to hide his face if he wanted to. He noticed Masato was really gung-ho about this. It was Misato's last high school cultural festival, and he'd be graduating in 6 months. Seeing Miyano's reaction to that, Masato was sure he had fallen for someone. Miyano would then ask him what it meant to like someone. Masato felt it varied from person to person. For instance, wanting to do things for them, wanting to be around them, wanting to hold their hand, touch them, kiss them, and wanting them all to yourself. Hearing that, all Miyano could think of was Sasaki. He thought about how he gifted Sasaki for his birthday, though he claimed it was done as a thank you. He never really thought about what he wanted to do for Sasaki. The fact that he was even thinking about it made him wonder if he wanted to see Sasaki as a target of romantic interest. Frustration built up, and he was so confused. Masato would start laughing at him, saying his hair was in a wild state. However, Miyano didn't want to cut it. It didn't really bother him anymore, and he didn't get teased for it as much. Just as he was about to talk about Sasaki, he caught himself, then realized he didn't need to be so stuck on that. Taking notice, Masato told him love also meant being unable to keep someone out of your mind. That was when Miyano realized he'd been thinking about Sasaki all day. Ooh, he's caught. Later in class, Masato brought some more outfits. He and Kurosawa would go over them. Miyano felt left out because they didn't ask his opinion. After the final adjustments, Masato and Kurosawa went to test them out. Being obsessed with his girlfriend, Kurosawa immediately sent her some pictures. Curious, Miyano asked if he had cosplayed for his girlfriend before. Although Kurosawa hadn't, he'd consider it if she asked. With his girlfriend in the hospital, he wanted to do whatever he could for her. Masato would leave briefly to meet with Hirano, so Miyano waited for him to get back. Moments later, Sasaki came in, and feeling shy, Miyano turned around, not wanting him to see his outfit. He had no idea Sasaki would lock the doors. He figured Miyano was participating in the cross-dressing competition. Up until now, it didn't really bother Miyano to have someone see him like this. But here with Sasaki, he felt so embarrassed. Suddenly, Sasaki asked if he'd really just let his classmates pressure him into doing this. His tone came off a bit nasty, so he'd apologize. However, Miyano didn't think it was bad at all. He was just shocked. It was more like the way Sasaki spoke with Hirano and Jiro. Then again, Miyano wondered why Sasaki was bothered about his tone. That's when he realized it was because Sasaki liked him. Sasaki then asked, "Would you drop out if I asked you not to compete?" Miyano was caught in a tough spot. A lot of people had already helped. He and his classmates had already agreed on this. He then told Sasaki he could try talking to them about it. Just as he was about to rush out, he got pulled back. Sasaki's feelings were killing him. The fact that Miyano hesitated to prioritize his classmates made him more desirable. Conflicting thoughts ran through his mind. In the end, he pulled Miyano in for a warm hug, where at that very moment, Miyano would come to terms with his feelings as well. As Sasaki held him, Miyano still wasn't sure whether to hug back or not. Sasaki told him he didn't play fair. With their faces so close, he slowly went for a kiss. But a cloth falling would startle them. They'd come back to their senses, and Sasaki returned Miyano's wig. Someone tried to open the door, but it was locked. Miyano had no idea when Sasaki did that. Sasaki then said he was half joking about what he said earlier, so there's no need for Miyano to worry about it. He'd place his hand on Miyano's cheek for a moment before leaving. When Kurosawa came in, Miyano was flushed and trying to process what just happened. Back in class, he was so frustrated, yet to understand what happened between him and Sasaki. He wanted to hug Sasaki then, but for some reason, he couldn't bring himself to do it. Suddenly, his thoughts wandered off to them dating and kissing. They hadn't even had their first date yet. The whole situation drove him crazy. His friends noticed he'd been acting weird today, so Kurosawa invited him to the bookstore later. He wanted to get a present for his girlfriend. Still thinking about Sasaki, Miyano figured it was good that he didn't say he liked him back then. Although he wanted to hug him, he had never kissed anyone. If it turned out he was wrong, the last thing he wanted to do was hurt Sasaki. Miyano decided he'd think more about whether he liked Sasaki as much as he liked him. At the bookstore, he felt it wasn't right to drop out of the competition. Even though he wanted to listen to Sasaki, there was this guilty feeling he couldn't explain. He was making Sasaki wait. When it came to things like this, he was too wishy-washy. When Kurosawa came over, Miyano asked him what he'd do if his girlfriend told him to quit something like club activities right now. Kurosawa didn't even think before saying he'd quit, but quickly changed his words, saying it depended on the reason. Regardless, if quitting would benefit his girl, then for sure he'd do it. But if she wasn't serious and he quit, it'd make her regretful. On the train back home, Kurosawa's words still played in Miyano's head. His hesitation wasn't just because Sasaki asked him. After all, Sasaki valued what he liked. Had it been about BL, Miyano would have deflected. That way, he wouldn't just be admiring Sasaki, but also so he could stand tall around him. The next day, he met up with Sasaki, saying he wanted to talk to him about the cross-dressing competition. He let him know he couldn't drop out. But to say he wanted to compete would be slightly misleading. Because he didn't like his face, Miyano thought it would bother him even more if he wore girls' clothes. So he always hated the idea. But with all the help he was getting, and the fact that people weren't teasing him much in high school, he made the decision to compete himself. Due to that, he wanted to follow through with it. Sasaki wished him good luck, feeling happy that Miyano shared how he felt. He'd be rooting for him. Before leaving, Miyano asked Sasaki if he'd like to see the festival together during his free time. They agreed to it. Sasaki's heart raced. He realized how much Miyano must have thought about this. As he left with Hirano, Sasaki mentioned that Miyano still hadn't given him an answer. Hirano was shocked, feeling like Miyano should just say no for now, instead of taking so long. But if there was a chance Miyano would be interested in him, Sasaki had no issues waiting. The next day, he came down with a cold. It was so bad, his entire class heard him sneezing. Hirano advised him to see the nurse, but Sasaki claimed he had just studied too much and wasn't sick. Hirano teased him, saying if he fell sick, he'd miss his date during the festival. Deciding to do the smart thing, Sasaki excused himself to the nurse's office. On his way, he came across the poster for Miyano's competition. Sasaki hoped nothing weird would happen, but even if something did happen, Miyano's classmates would probably help him. Still, Sasaki didn't like that Miyano would be getting up in front of other guys. Upon getting to the nurse's office, he saw a sign that she was out and would be back soon. Coming into the hallway, Miyano was surprised to see him. He suggested they go into the office and wait. During cooking class, he accidentally burned himself. Hence, the teacher made him go see the nurse. Luckily, he wasn't badly hurt. While he filled out the forms, Sasaki sat on the table. Sasaki sneezed, and Miyano thought it was cute. He'd then bring a thermometer to help check his temperature. Seeing his adorable face, Sasaki could barely handle it. He laid on the couch. Then Miyano started looking for a blanket. Unable to find one, he'd use the sheets from the bed. Miyano had a fever, so it was best for him to head home. As Miyano was about to leave to find the nurse, Sasaki held him back, saying he was capable of going home on his own. However, Miyano offered to walk him home. Sasaki didn't understand why he was willing to go through all that trouble, but Miyano wanted to take care of him. That hit a soft spot in Sasaki's heart. His face was red with embarrassment. Miyano was then allowed to go get the nurse. On the other hand, Sasaki thought he could get Miyano to say he liked him, but he wasn't expecting that response. Did Miyano only see him as a senpai, or was there something else? Sasaki wasn't sure, but his hopes were up. Later, when Miyano had returned, Sasaki got his schedule for the festival, and it seemed like he wouldn't be free until after the cross-dressing competition. Lunchtime was short. Their class was doing a cafe, and there were lots of shifts. Since he didn't have lunch plans with anyone, Miyano asked if he'd like to have lunch together. Sasaki agreed, promising to get over his cold. The cultural festival was here. More than anyone else, Fumi was pumped up to beat Class A fair and square. Kurosawa decided to go check things out, and Tashiro asked him to get Class A's cheesy chicken. Fumi felt if they were going to contribute to Class A, then they should do the same. Kurosawa asked Miyano if he wanted anything, but he already had lunch plans. So, he told Miyano to come with him until then. They stopped by Sasaki's class's Hooligan Fortune Cafe. It was an interesting concept. Their class had a lot of bad boy types, so they decided to make use of them. There was also a fortune-telling tent, run by Masato. When Kurosawa went to the tent, Miyano decided to wait with Sasaki until the end of his shift. Sasaki told him that they were supposed to play things up when a customer came, but he wasn't expecting Miyano to show up yet, which made him feel embarrassed. However, Miyano said he looked cool. Hirano would then come, yelling at Sasaki to up his hooligan factor and get up. Miyano would order a cup of coffee. He didn't want food since he already had lunch plans. Seeing delinquents taking orders, he found the class quite interesting, and it made him wonder if the fortune teller was a delinquent as well. When Hirano brought his coffee, it looked pretty threatening. Kurosawa returned, and Miyano was curious as to why he went to the fortune teller. Between the gorgeous pop idol and the gorgeous manager's perspective, Kurosawa wasn't sure which manga to buy. He was told to pick the one he felt closer to, so he settled on the pop idol, who was closer in age. Miyano asked if he was a Fudanchi too, but Kurosawa wasn't. He was just a dedicated boyfriend who did his homework. Getting into the tent, Miyano was welcomed by Masato. He seemed to be the only one not dressed like a delinquent. Masato had intended to, but everyone told him it was too scary. That didn't stop his mask from making him look more ominous. He then explained he used the tarot to find a solution to a problem one had, and the cards were a special set designed by the class. Masato figured Miyano had some romance problems, and he'd urged Miyano to confess them because it'd make him feel better. So, Miyano asked how one could gain confidence about how they felt. Following Masato's instructions, he picked the cards and then flipped one over. The card he picked had the symbol of strength, which Masato said signified persistence. Miyano had been trying various things to gain confidence, and that resonated with him. He didn't want to proceed and then find out he was wrong. Taking note of his earnestness, Masato felt Miyano would be a good fit as the next discipline committee chairman, but Miyano would immediately refuse. However, Masato told him that he was struggling with this because it was probably a concern that arose over a worldview he had never held before, and it just showed how important this issue was to him. It was completely normal to lack confidence, so as far as Miyano could see the finish line ahead, he needed to keep pushing forward and not give up. As he left, Masato looked back at the tarot, saying that for romance, it would signify a love that slowly ripened over time. He hoped things would go well for Miyano. The next tarot he picked displayed the Hanged Man, and he interpreted that as accepting the situation without resistance. At that moment, Masato thought about his big brother. With Sasaki's shift over, he and Miyano left to get lunch. Class 1C was doing a cotton candy experience, and 1B was doing Guess the Spiciest Treat. So, they agreed to try out both after the competition. As Miyano left to get changed, Sasaki wished him good luck. Despite not liking the idea, Sasaki managed to be supportive, and he was glad. As Kurosawa approached from the window, that was when Miyano got on stage. Miyano's dazzling beauty left Sasaki speechless. Kurosawa then asked if he could support Miyano appearing in a cross-dressing competition like this. Although Sasaki didn't feel great about it, he liked seeing Miyano enjoy himself. After all, that was how it all started for him. Seeing Miyano happy also made him happy. After learning about his feelings, Miyano was still so kind to him. Sasaki remembered when Miyano said he might look different than now when he turned 50. That made him wonder if Miyano was considering him long term. Sasaki blushed. He wanted to grow up so he wouldn't bring both of them down. He wanted to be a cool adult. At the end of the competition, Miyano came in as a runner-up. He was a bit disappointed, but also glad he looked manlier than first place. Sasaki thought he got taller as well. Reaching for his hair, he complimented how nice he looked. Miyano was flush and feeling a bit flustered. He then left to get changed. Likewise, Sasaki was the same, thinking about how Miyano was self-conscious. By nighttime, a lot of people were still in school. Deciding not to participate in the closing, Sasaki came to spend his time with Miyano. Just then, fireworks lit up the sky, startling him a little. Surprisingly, in 3 years, this was Sasaki's first time seeing the fireworks. He would always leave before the closing, but this year, Miyano was with him, which made it the best festival of them all. Looking at Sasaki, Miyano asked if he could wait just a little longer for his answer. It felt irresponsible to give it right now. Sasaki reached for his hand. His heart was pounding so loud, they'd interlocked fingers. Sasaki wondered how much he was allowed to touch him. With his head on Miyano's shoulder, he promised to wait. Miyano could sense how vulnerable he was being, and he liked it. Did he like him the same way? He was happy to be needed, happy that Sasaki enjoyed his hobby with him. But that wasn't all it was. Miyano couldn't say it yet. He didn't want to hurt Sasaki. He didn't want to decide he was mistaken. It would be irresponsible to say it without knowing for certain that he wouldn't hurt him. As they left to finish locking up, Miyano thought about how Sasaki appreciated him so much. He didn't know if this was the same way Sasaki felt about him. Despite that, he wanted to tell Sasaki he liked him. Walking out of the store the next day, Miyano was happy to have snagged the limited first edition run of an item. To his surprise, Sasaki would bump into him. Then, a lady came after him, complaining about how Sasaki always took off. Shortly after, Jiro also met up with them. Jiro would then take his leave. He had plans to cook dinner for his girl, so he was going shopping. As for Miyano, he had plans to go see a BL movie, and Sasaki would happily tag along with him. While getting tickets, Miyano asked if he was sure about this. Sasaki was. He took it like they were on a movie date. Miyano couldn't help but blush. When they got inside, Miyano noticed there were a lot of girls here. It was rare to see pairs of guys. As the movie went on, Sasaki glanced over at Miyano. He reached for his hand, but suddenly stopped as he saw him totally engrossed in the movie. At the end of it, Miyano was so moved he started crying. The movie was so much better than he imagined. At first, he was nervous because the original was a 2D animation. He was scared the atmosphere of the original would be destroyed. In the end, it checked all the right boxes for him. Since the original was a novel, Sasaki asked if he could take a bit longer to return it after borrowing. He never really read novels, so he was uncertain how it would go for him. Just then, Miyano heard some girls whispering about the two of them dating. That was the only conclusion. If two guys went to watch a BL movie, Miyano knew they didn't mean any harm by it. Sasaki would pinch his cheeks, bringing him back into reality. Then, he expressed how glad he was that they saw the movie together. Miyano felt the same. Whenever Sasaki was around, he was at ease. His heart raced. Despite no guarantee of a kiss or of anything else working out, Miyano could feel strong emotions within him. If these feelings weren't real, then what was? Miyano liked Sasaki so much, his chest felt tight. Just as Sasaki spoke, he was also going to say something, but he changed his mind. With so many people around, he wasn't crazy enough to let out those words. As his heart pounded heavily, he realized confessing things took a lot of courage. When to say it or what to say, he wasn't sure. With Sasaki calling his attention, it only made him more flustered. Ever since Miyano realized he liked Sasaki, Sasaki had been looking very cute in his eyes. They'd greet each other on the train. However, Miyano felt a guy wouldn't want another guy to tell him he looked cute. Here he was thinking about him. It was the same thing that made him uncomfortable in middle school. Nevertheless, Miyano still thought of him as a cool person as well. Sasaki would then return the novel he borrowed, thanking Miyano. It was easy for him to read, so he flew through it. If not for the novel's nighttime scene, he might have forgotten it was BL. The movie also felt really natural, and he was glad he got to see the live action. Despite all the people on the train, Miyano felt like he could confess his feelings at the moment. However, he'd keep missing his chance to tell him. It was so hard for him to find time alone with Sasaki. They were in different classes and grades, and they weren't on the same committee. The only time they weren't apart was on the way to and from school. Miyano had let it go for so long that he didn't know how to bring it up now. While wondering how to approach Sasaki, Kurosawa called his attention, confirming that Sasaki worked at a bakery. However, he didn't know exactly where. just that it was on the way to his girlfriend's. Fumi then walked into class, announcing that Christmas was almost here. With that in mind, he planned to throw their first Christmas party that day. Kurosawa would immediately pass on that, because that was time for him and his girlfriend. With so many people dating in their class, Fumi got even more frustrated. He couldn't bag one for himself. Shirahama took some time before raising his hand. Apparently, he planned to get a girlfriend before Christmas. Fumi told him that couples that got together just in time for Christmas were bound to break up immediately. Hearing that, Miyano became concerned. He wondered if that would be the situation if he gave Sasaki his answer now. He didn't want to risk it. Stupid superstition bait. They're not gonna break up by getting together on Christmas. They're gonna break up because statistically, that's what happens when you date someone during high school. Kurosawa would then make him raise his hand, adding him to the list of traitors for Fumi. Not like he was dating anyone currently, but it was to keep Miyano's options open. Tashiro glared at him with a boiling rage. He thought Miyano had probably started dating Sasaki. The thought of it didn't seem to faze him. On the train, Miyano figured he'd have to invite Sasaki since they wouldn't see each other during winter break. As always, Sasaki would meet him on the train. With entrance exams coming soon, he needed to be up and early for prep and the quizzes they had every day. He'd also be taking special winter classes. Sasaki asked if Miyano had picked out his college yet, but Miyano said the teacher told him to think more about it. Still, Sasaki offered to celebrate if he got into his target school. Miyano wondered how to ask Sasaki if they could see each other on Christmas. He felt it would affect Sasaki's studying. He couldn't do much, but he would support him. It had come as a shock when Sasaki asked if he had plans for the 25th. There would be an exhibit for the movie they saw somewhere close to the theater. So, he asked Miyano if he wanted to go. Miyano felt he'd need to study, but Sasaki didn't mind a little break. Plus, it would help if Miyano came along. With that settled, Miyano agreed to come. He was so happy, not only for the fact that they'd meet on Christmas, but also that they were on the train together. Later on, he'd come across Masato in the mall. Shortly after, Masato's older brother, Masaomi, met up with him. Their parents sent them shopping for Christmas. Masato complained because he was supposed to be studying, referring to his brother as Makun. Masaomi said he just wanted an excuse to sneak in time with his friends. Masato complained about being called that name in public, and Miyano wasted no time latching onto it. Looking at the two of them, Masaomi wondered if Miyano was Masato's boyfriend. Masato quickly cleared the misunderstanding, and when his brother tried talking about a time in middle school, you stopped him. He hated how Masaomi always tried to connect everything to romance. Realizing how he blurted that out, he apologized. Masato told Miyano that his brother just liked to talk about love and romance a lot. Miyano remembered he talked about that a lot too. He mentioned seeing Sasaki with his big sister, and as someone with no siblings, it was fun for him to see. He now learned Masato was also a younger sibling. After Miyano left, Masaomi returned. He then apologized to his brother for teasing. He just hadn't seen him that happy in a while. Miyano already had somebody, so Masato asked his brother not to drag him into it. Curious, Masaomi asked if he had feelings for Miyano. He was walking on thin ice right now, but he couldn't help but notice how his brother was close to people, but never dated them. However, Masato made it clear he wasn't attracted to guys, only girls. Right now, he just enjoyed hanging out with friends. He then apologized to his brother for being harsh, letting him know there was nothing wrong with his love. Masaomi was glad to have him as a brother. Some time ago, Masaomi confessed to liking guys in front of their mom. So did their older brother Masaki. Wow. What's the stats on 2 out of 3 siblings being gay? Since Masato was the only guy who liked girls, their mom concluded he'd be the one to give her children. The rest could do whatever they wanted. However, Masato wondered why their mom sounded so relieved. Thinking about it now, Masato felt his mom didn't need to be so worried. At first, he was taken aback, but looking back, he realized Miyano and Sasaki always looked excited together. It made him believe his brothers would be okay. After the winter break, Miyano kept trying to meet up with Sasaki, but he never managed to get a time that worked. Sasaki was too busy, but he'd eventually agreed to meet up with Miyano after school. Today was the day Miyano would finally give his answer. Once school was over, they met up, and Miyano returned the CD he borrowed over break. He was surprised the band did a BL theme song. Most of their stuff wasn't love songs. His mom even knew one of the tracks. Sasaki was glad to hear he liked the band. The way he was so direct made Miyano blush. Miyano wanted to be that way too. As he moved his bag over his shoulder, Sasaki asked why he always did that. Feeling a bit shy, Miyano told him it was so that he wouldn't hit him with the bag. He felt so embarrassed, but it had become a habit for him. Just then, Their time would be ruined because Miyano was called by the new chairman of the discipline committee. When Miyano asked Sasaki to wait a bit, Sasaki suddenly closed in for a kiss. With such strong feelings, he didn't know what to do, but he'd stop himself, feeling embarrassed. Sasaki decided to head home while Miyano tried to stop him. Miyano asked Sasaki to wait for him, promising he wouldn't be long, but Sasaki simply continued on his way, not even turning to look at him. Miyano then ran to the committee office, telling them to give him the update tomorrow. Then he left, chasing after Sasaki. But unfortunately, he was unable to catch up. It was all a misunderstanding. Miyano was actually fine with Sasaki kissing him. As Hirano and Masato approached him, he asked if they had seen Sasaki. After ransacking his locker, Masato confirmed Sasaki had left. Since he didn't have his number, Miyano had no way of contacting Sasaki. Seeing how worried Miyano was, Masato urged him to calm down. He assumed they were dating, but they weren't. At least not yet. Miyano admitted that he liked him. Thanks to his brothers, Masato understood how same-sex relationships could be tough. Whenever he saw an injury on them, he'd worry something had happened with the boyfriend. Though he didn't think Sasaki and Miyano would fight like that. He was only worried that they'd have to face things, such as people asking inappropriate questions. Even if someone did say something, Miyano believed he could handle it if Sasaki was with him. That was why he wanted to do his best to make sure Sasaki didn't worry. Hirano returned to them after trying to contact Sasaki, but there was no answer. When they brought up Sasaki's family bakery, Miyano got an idea, so he quickly ran off. Meanwhile, Hirano left Sasaki a message, saying he forgot something at school. It was a lie. He only said that so Sasaki would run into Miyano on the way. Meanwhile, Sasaki was beating himself up for trying to kiss Miyano on impulse. They weren't even dating. Eaten up by guilt, he felt like he was trying to force Miyano, despite promising to wait. His restraints kept slipping. He thought about keeping his distance, but that would be harder. At the same time, Miyano was on the train, lost in thought about how much he cared for Sasaki. There were so many things he wanted to do for him. Thinking back to the moment they almost kissed, he was flush. Then, he got a text directing him to the train station for the bakery. Sasaki cared a lot about what he liked. Miyano would admit to himself that he also wanted to kiss him. Getting off the train, Miyano finally met up with Sasaki. They'd go somewhere more suitable to talk. Once they got to a park, Sasaki apologized for what happened earlier. He didn't mean to be forceful. He was supposed to wait for Miyano's answer. Seeing the sad look in his eyes, Miyano told him, "I like you." Sasaki needed to hear it again to be sure. That got Miyano all flustered. Regardless, he'd confessed his feelings once more. He explained that he was only surprised earlier, and his gesture didn't mean he was telling Sasaki no. He loved all the times they spent together. Times on the train, when they went to see the movie, and even during the cultural festival. Miyano felt like the words weren't enough to get his feelings across, but Sasaki wouldn't know if he didn't tell him. Feeling awkward, he made it clear that he didn't just admire Sasaki. He also found him cute, and thought he was cool. Miyano wanted to become brave like him as well. He mentioned how Sasaki showed him how wonderful it was to have someone take an interest in what he liked. He enjoyed finding out what Sasaki liked as well, and talking to him put him at ease. Sometimes, he wanted to hug him. It made him happy to see Sasaki smile. And also, he wanted to touch him. Grabbing Sasaki's hand, he asked if this meant they felt the same way about each other. Interlocking fingers, they both noticed their hands were cold. Sasaki asked to hug him, and Miyano happily agreed. As they held each other in that warm embrace, they both wanted more. Finally, their love would blossom with a kiss. Now that things were good between them, Sasaki didn't want to graduate. He recalled Hirano had left him a message, but figured he was lying. Miyano doubted Hirano would do that. So, Sasaki called Hirano and gave the phone to Miyano. Hirano then basically admitted he was lying, but not really. After that, Miyano officially asked Sasaki to be his boyfriend. He didn't want them to confess their feelings and end up not dating. However, Sasaki would go ahead and ask him out again, like he did before. With a smile on his face, Miyano agreed, and they sealed it with a kiss. They'd finally exchanged contacts. This was their story, and it was only just beginning. Later at school, Miyano told his friends he and Sasaki started dating. Likewise, Sasaki informed his friends, wishing each other good luck in their exams. Joy filled the air as their friends happily watched them. On a stormy day at the train station, Miyano recalled how his feelings for Sasaki started with admiration. After that, they ended up talking many times, and in the winter of his second year of high school, they started dating. Recalling those memories, he was flush. Today was the day of Sasaki's college entrance exam. They would then meet up at the station. Miyano gave him some hand warmers. Then, he brought out 2 mangas for him to choose from. According to him, they had a reputation for bringing good luck, so Sasaki picked one. Feeling shy, he tried to hide his grin. With Sasaki's train almost here, Miyano embraced him and wished him the best. Later in school, Masato informed Tashiro that he was the new captain of the ping pong team. His classmates couldn't believe it. Considering how much trouble Tashiro was always getting into, it was shocking. Masato was known for always being nice, but when someone like him got mad, he was scary. Regardless, it was Tashiro's fault for skipping team activities without permission. The fact that he became captain after all that, he saw it as the carrot and stick approach. Masato was someone who really upheld the rules. Suddenly, Tashiro started thinking about treats, saying Sasaki was pretty different from that. Miyano wondered why he was bringing him up. Earlier on, behind the school building, Tashiro asked Miyano what 2 guys did when they were dating. Kurosawa said it was normal stuff, like he and his girlfriend. However, Tashiro had no idea what normal stuff was. After all, he was still single. Kurosawa then remembered he was supposed to have gone to a mixer the other day with the Christmas single squad. But Tashiro had gotten so nervous, he didn't remember. Plus, this was a boys' school. There were no girls to meet. Miyano suggested finding a part-time job. A lot of people were known to have met their girlfriends at work. Tashiro already had one, but there were never any girls there. Maybe the universe just didn't like him. He did frequently talk to old ladies. And if that was his preference, his friends wouldn't judge. But Tashiro didn't think of them like that. After school, Miyano met up with Sasaki, noticing that he was still reading. After Sasaki was done with his first choice exam, he still had general exams to take. Hirano also told him that passing wasn't the finish line. As they walked together, Sasaki asked Miyano if he could borrow the other manga he didn't pick back then. Miyano offered to give him more for study breaks, but since Sasaki might have to hold on to them for a while, he decided to just give them that particular one. Even after making things official, their conversations hadn't changed. For them, this was the normal stuff, though this normal they had while going to the same school would end soon. While having some cocoa, Sasaki recalled there was a guy with long hair featured in the last manga he borrowed. So, he asked Miyano if he preferred long or short hair. Sasaki was only trying to ask his type. But somehow, Miyano went into deep thought about BL stuff. As he caressed Miyano's hair, Sasaki explained that for him, if the hair was long, he could run his fingers through it, which was fun. But if short, he could see Miyano's face better, which made him happy. Hearing him say that made Miyano so flustered. Then, while he told Sasaki about a Valentine's party their class was doing, Sasaki got distracted by his neck. As he touched it, Miyano was startled because of his cold hands. So Sasaki would avoid touching his neck while they were outside. But on the train, all he could think about was touching Miyano. But until he passed his exams, he promised not to touch him any more than this. Days later, Tashiro asked Miyano and Kurosawa to stop at a candy store with him. He was certain Kurosawa wouldn't be able to come. But to their surprise, he said he could. They asked what happened to his girlfriend, learning since it was a school day she was spending time with her family, and Kurosawa didn't want to intrude on private family time. As for Miyano, it was obvious he had a date. With Sasaki being so busy prepping for exams, they hadn't seen each other. Kurosawa and Tashiro teased Miyano, saying he should enjoy his date. But sadly, Miyano would receive a message from Sasaki, saying he came down with a cold. Hoping his fever would come down tomorrow, Sasaki fell asleep. The moment he opened his eyes, Miyano was in front of him. He hadn't planned to visit initially, but his friends basically pushed him to do it. After he went in, Kurosawa and Tashiro left to hit up an arcade. Sasaki appreciated the visit and went on to put on a face mask as well. He explained that he had a fever and was really worn out. Turns out, he couldn't push himself as hard as Hirano. As Miyano brought out a drink for him, Sasaki told him how much he missed him. Then, he apologized for missing out on their date today. Miyano didn't mind. He then asked Sasaki if he wanted some affection. They enjoyed their sweet, intimate moment. But it was ruined with Satoko walking into the room. Luckily, she didn't see them doing anything. After Miyano introduced himself as a friend, she left to bring drinks. Miyano wanted to assist. Sasaki held him back for a moment, then gave him directions to the kitchen. Shortly after Miyano returned with drinks, Sasaki had fallen asleep. He set the drinks on the table and then returned to the bedside. Staring at Sasaki's handsome face, he thought his man was so cool. Sasaki suddenly woke up to find Miyano staring at him. He jokingly asked if Miyano had kissed him. Hearing that, Miyano felt embarrassed. He made it clear he wouldn't do anything to Sasaki in his sleep. So, Sasaki walked up close, letting him know that he was awake right now. Blushing, Miyano said he was too self-conscious. Besides, Sasaki had a fever. After spending some more time together, Miyano decided to take his leave. He apologized for coming unannounced. However, Sasaki completely ignored that and kissed him through their masks. Miyano's face turned hot red. On his way home, he felt bad for not being able to help with Sasaki's cold. He couldn't help but think how cute Sasaki was, and that he wanted to kiss him. With Valentine's Day approaching, Miyano told Sasaki that he wanted to make some chocolates with him. He originally wanted to make them for Sasaki, but he wasn't a very good baker. Later, Miyano and Sasaki got together at his place and baked wonderful treats. Miyano's mom really enjoyed the delicious taste as well. When they were done, Miyano would walk Sasaki back. On their way, he thanked him for coming over. Sasaki would then hand him a cupcake as a present, and now Miyano felt bad for not having one for him. He figured the ones they ate at his place would count. So, he rushed out, asking Sasaki to wait for a bit. When he came back, he wrapped a drink and gave it to him as his own gift. Miyano promised to get good enough to make sweets by himself next year. Getting to the train station, they bid each other farewell. Walking back home, Miyano stared at the cupcake Sasaki gifted him. Just then, the moonlight would illuminate him as he thought about Sasaki's cute face. The next day, Sasaki saw his test results. He passed! His sister and mom congratulated him. Satoko wished to celebrate over dinner. However, Sasaki needed to head to school to report his results. On his way out, Jiro met with him, pointing out that Sasaki didn't reply to his texts. Jiro needed to grab the guitar he left at his place. As for their results, Jiro had also passed, but he didn't give why Sasaki was going to school when he could just call them. He asked if Miyano had anything to do with this. Sasaki wasn't the type to show up at school when it wasn't required, and then asked if Sasaki was really dating Miyano. However, Sasaki told him it was none of his business. But Jiro seemed more distressed that if his girlfriend started talking about BL stuff, he might imagine the two of them doing it. Somehow, the whole conversation shifted to BL. Jiro then asked Sasaki if he was a bottom or top. On second thought, he told him not to worry. It'd be uncomfortable for him to hear stuff like that about a friend. When they parted ways, Sasaki began to wonder which role he was. In school, Miyano received a call from Sasaki, telling him he had passed. Filled with joy, Miyano congratulated him, and without delay, he rushed over and was shocked to actually see Sasaki in school. Sasaki wanted to give him the good news in person, and with Miyano here, coming to school wasn't a pain anymore. To celebrate his results, Sasaki asked him to give him a gift, and when Miyano asked what he wanted, he saw himself being cuddled by Sasaki. He wanted to try it after seeing it in a BL manga. He then kissed Miyano suddenly. Miyano got flustered because they were in school, but Sasaki promised not to do more than kiss. He'd hug Miyano so passionately, running his fingers around his neck. The two of them were blushing hard. Miyano, however, would tell him that he wasn't a bottom. Sasaki wondered what the hell he was talking about. Miyano planned to tell him something else, but only BL lines kept slipping out. At that moment, he wanted to do it again. They'd enjoy a passionate moment, kissing each other. Sasaki realized he was fine with whatever role. All that mattered was whatever Miyano wanted. Miyano was okay with being on the floor. Sasaki, on the other hand, while on top, had the urge to do more than just kiss. At home, recalling that hot kissing moment he had with Sasaki, Miyano was red with embarrassment. He'd get a call from Sasaki, wishing him a happy birthday. Sasaki wanted to be the first one to say it. After that, they said goodnight. Miyano knew Sasaki didn't usually stay up this late. It might be considered a BL experience, but unlike before, he could read BL just fine. He was convinced he wasn't looking for that. However, life had a strange way of doing things. Following that, Sasaki was helping Miyano study. Miyano said he needed a break, so Sasaki went to make him a treat. 5 minutes later, he came back with a cake to celebrate Miyano's birthday. After one bite, Miyano noticed it wasn't so sweet. Sasaki had tailored it to suit him. While Sasaki was acting normal as usual, Miyano was a little nervous after what they did at school. Sasaki would then sneak in a kiss, leaving Miyano flush. Satoko would then bring some drinks for them. That's when her brother revealed to her that he and Miyano were dating. She'd ask why, and then run out of the room. Miyano told Sasaki they needed to chase after her. He made it clear that he confessed his feelings because he wanted to relieve Sasaki of his worries and make him happy. So, they agreed to head over to Satoko's boyfriend's place, where she'd most likely be. On their way, Sasaki recalled a heated moment he had with his sister where she slapped him. He couldn't be too pushy with her because in middle school he had injured her. He accidentally pushed her over, and the injury left a scar. That was when Sasaki understood he was bigger than other kids. He stopped really knowing how to fight, or how hard was too hard. Their parents usually gave them free rein, but that day, Satoko yelled at Sasaki to stop running away when things got tough and to get his act together. Suddenly, they'd bump into her and her boyfriend. With tears in her eyes, she immediately apologized for saying awful things. Shortly after, she sat with Miyano, recalling that she'd been taught about same-sex couples in school. Her classmates spoke about what was supposed to be normal and what wasn't, but Satoko didn't like any of that. When she thought about how she might have rejected her brother and Miyano, she felt bad. But the two of them were the ones concerned. The guilt ate her up, and she apologized again for having asked why. Miyano told her it was alright. People were known to change how they thought about things over time. Besides, Sasaki was important to both of them, so he asked her to join him in making Sasaki happy. Seeing how much of a cool guy Miyano was, she kind of understood why Sasaki fell for him. In the end, everyone made up. After the graduation ceremony rehearsals, Miyano went to see Sasaki. Over in Sasaki's class, one of his classmates was drawing a lipstick smooch on his face. That was when Miyano walked in and saw it. He then ran away, and Sasaki chased after him. Sasaki tried to explain that he misunderstood the situation. He'd finally caught up and told Miyano he was just humoring a classmate who was going to makeup school. But Miyano didn't suspect Sasaki of anything, although he knew it wasn't real. For a moment, he was flooded with an awful feeling. He realized it was jealousy and questioned how his heart could be so small. Sasaki would then hug him tightly. Despite knowing it might cause trouble, he just wanted that hug. As Miyano hugged him back, he asked to stay like this just for a little longer. Miyano's jealousy made Sasaki so happy, and by tomorrow, he'd be graduating from high school. On the day of graduation, Miyano came to congratulate Sasaki. He'd seen some third years leaving and panicked about making him wait. From the way Sasaki's friends were talking, it was obvious they knew about their relationship. With just two of them left alone in the class, something seemed to bother Miyano. Thinking about how today was their last day being at the same school, he was sad. Sasaki would pat his head to cheer him up, and they'd decide to take one last tour through the school. They'd walk around, replaying memories of the times they spent together at different corners of the school. Recalling when Miyano said he might be taller in the future, Sasaki asked him if he had broken 5'7". Miyano was embarrassed, but that was part of what Sasaki found adorable about him. Seeing that the discipline committee room was open, Miyano went to fetch the key while Sasaki waited inside. Sasaki remembered the moment he stood beside Miyano while asleep. He didn't kiss him then. Miyano urged him to confess his feelings back then. Thinking of it now, Sasaki was grateful to have good friends. When Miyano returned, Sasaki suddenly covered him with his blazer and leaned in for a kiss. At that moment, Kurosawa caught sight of them. But Sasaki pulled Miyano, quickly ducking behind the window. Sasaki excused himself to the bathroom. Then, got a text from Kurosawa, asking if he was alright. Luckily, he was. Miyano thought he hated being called cute, but from this moment on, his and Sasaki's story would continue. It wasn't just high school, they'd go on and on into the future together. Alright, well, that's the end of this one. What did I think about this series? I think narratively, it's written pretty well, and I would say I even enjoyed my time. But compared to all the BL I've covered, I'd put it above Heaven Official's anime and below everything else. Like, this show is sweet and fluffy, but I've never really liked school romance. However, I can understand someone who's a teen can potentially enjoy these more since they haven't had a lot of romantic experience yet, and it's technically closer for them to have these. But generally, nothing happens in school romance. I think this show is A tier, but I much more enjoyed Isekai Office Worker and Cherry Magic because I'm not watching BLs for the fluff. Number one, I'm watching them to make money, but number two, I'm looking for funny moments to react to. Like when Aresh gets possessive over Sei and has to inject him with magic juice. As always, love to hear your thoughts in the comments. I'll be grinding out more BL anime, but for manhwa, the next one I'm working on is Guild Member Next Door. Subscribe for more BL, but for now, watch this next video. It's me, Comfy T. I'll see you all in the next one.